We're joined now by the mayor of Fort Myers Beach, Dan Allers. Dan, I know this is an unnerving time for you. I appreciate you spending some of your morning with us, and your area is under a mandatory evacuation. So at this moment, as the storm approaches, what are your top concerns?
Well, our top concern is that people have heeded the warnings and got out of town. Last night, the town manager and I were driving around just to see if people actually did leave, and to our surprise and to our joy, they did. So we unfortunately 2 years ago we went through this exact same thing. It's almost eerie. We know what 15 feet of storm surge looks like. Our residents know what it looks like. So we've been able to evacuate the hotels, and I would say probably 95% of our residents have left, with hoping the rest leave today.
And that's what's unique about your part of Florida. You know, you have many bodies of water kind of in the city area, and small bays and small rivers as well. So the storm surge, I would imagine, is a huge concern for you. But you also have plenty of folks who have moved to Florida, to Fort Myers Beach in recent past, and perhaps are not as used to this type of emergency. Does that concern you at all, that some folks, for them, that this may be new?
Yeah, it does. But fortunately, we've had enough time. You know, this will be our fifth storm in just over 2 years since Hurricane Ian. So we've come battle tested. I hate to say it that way, but it's true. We know what to expect. We're expecting the worst. When we took the devastation from Ian 2 years ago, which is what they're kind of predicting now for this Tampa-St. Pete area, we know what it's like. We know the devastation that comes after it. For us, we're concerned, as you see in the pictures there, you know, that's what it looked like after 15 to 17 feet of storm surge. Right. Most of those buildings are still gone. So any amount of storm surge, we're in the 6 to 10 range right now. That could change. That's going to push that surge further inland on our island. We're only 7 miles long. So when that surge comes, it's going to go further down our side streets and affect more properties than even Ian did. So what's one of our big concerns right now, and why we're telling our residents you need to go. We tried to get out the evacuation order as early as we could, which was 3 o'clock yesterday. We've got a debris haulers trying to pick up what was left over after Helene to try to make sure we get as much floating debris out of the way as we can. So I guess we're as prepared as we can. We're going to push again to get people off the island that are still here. Yeah. And hope for the best.
Look, that's encouraging, and you know, you're battle tested, as you say, but to experience this type of back-to-back storms, I think, is something you've not yet been tested with as far as the strength. Do you feel at this moment, this morning, that you have what you need from state and federal officials?
Yeah, we've always been fortunate to have strong leadership from the state, from the top down, and they're always here for us anytime we need it. If I could give any reassurance to those that are to the north of us that appear to be getting even worse than what we're going to get, know that the state stands behind you. They're very good at what they do. They will be there as soon as they need to be. They're already ready to go. We've been in contact with our state representatives, and they're ready to help us at a moment's notice. So the best thing we can do is get prepared as we can, get everything off this island that we possibly can, and we'll clean up when it's done.
I just hope folks there are listening to your guidance, and it's good to hear that so far you've got the support you need. Mayor Dan Allers, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Now, for more on this, let's bring in meteorologist John Elliott with CBS News New York. Good morning, John.
Morning, everybody. Eerily quiet weather for so many of us, coast to coast. It's really quite nice. Continued excessive heat in parts of the Southwest, but obviously so much focus on this monster Milton that exploded yesterday from 2 a.m. as a Cat 1 to a Cat 2 at 5, a 3 at 7, a Cat 4 at 9, and a Cat 5 by noon. And then into the afternoon, 180-mile-an-hour winds. Now, it's down to a 4. There's a possibility it could strengthen back to a 5 as it makes its journey closer to the Gulf Coast, will likely weaken again and make landfall as a Category 3. The concern is going to be, well, you've got all of these issues. You've got storm surge, you've got rain, you've got the risk of severe weather, and all in the context of Helene, where there's so much debris that they're still dealing with. A few showers, maybe even a storm upstate New York into the mid-Atlantic. It's nice. We do have better weather and nice quiet weather for the cleanup efforts in North Carolina down to Georgia. Nice and hot again in the central states. Super in Sioux Falls, Kansas City. Wonderful. Notice the heat, though, out west. Here we go again. Going to be 107 in Phoenix. Like to get a bit of a break. They've trimmed some of the hot weather advisories, but still pace yourself in the southwest today.
All right, John Elliott, thank you. We are tracking Hurricane Milton. It is churning off the Florida Gulf Coast, and its storm path is headed toward the west coast of Florida, where it will likely bring life-threatening storm surge as well as heavy rain and strong winds. Milton is currently a Category 4 storm, and it did pick up a lot of strength recently. We want to now cross to our CBS News correspondent, Christian Benavides. He's tracking everything from St. Petersburg in Florida. And this is a place still, as you've been reporting, Christian, recovering from Helene. But how serious is the situation now?
Yeah. Errol, at this point, you can just take a look at what this area looks like. We're in St. Pete Beach. This is a barrier island community. There are still folks here, as you can see. We spoke to a woman here, Suzanne, who is currently evacuating. She mentioned to me, she walked me through her experience. She rode out Helene, and she said she almost died. And this time she is evacuating for Milton, because all this damage that you see around me from Helene was caused by 5 feet of storm surge. Currently, what the forecast is showing is upwards of 15 feet of storm surge here. That's something that this area hasn't seen in modern history. And what officials are also worried about are these piles of debris, you know, from this small pile to entire homes. Officials are concerned that when Milton makes landfall, all of this debris could get picked up because of the wind and become dangerous projectiles, that they could also block storm drains. So they are, it's really, you know, a rush to try to get this to a location where it won't just scatter everywhere. But I mean, just take a look. This is what you see for blocks and blocks and blocks from Helene. That there's so much cleanup to do, and it's a race against the clock to try to get this to some place where it won't cause that sort of damage. So that's what's happening here at this point. And as you can see, people, as I mentioned, like Susan, who we spoke to, just evacuating, trying to make sure that they are out of here by the time that Milton is here.
Governor Ron DeSantis held an emergency press conference this morning saying he's putting fuel around the state. He's making sure there are protective barriers around some hospitals. Talk to me about preparations outside of where you are to keep people safe. It's just so unnerving seeing everything you're showing us.
Yeah, well, you know, people are trying to prepare, but you got to remember Tampa is such a low-lying area that practically, you know, a huge chunk of Tampa proper, downtown Tampa, all of that has to be evacuated. And here's the thing, Errol, you've got so many folks that already had to leave and find shelter elsewhere in places like hotels, anywhere, because of Helene. And now you've got Milton, so you don't have a lot of places to go.
Christian Benavides, we will continue to track your reporting. You and the team stay safe. Thank you very much. Let's now bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore. Grant, at some point, this storm jumped up to a 5. The temperature in the Gulf is so warm. Yeah. Let us know what to expect where it is now.
It's incredible how much it intensified yesterday, Errol. It went from a Category 1 early yesterday morning to a Category 5 yesterday around midday. So here's the thing. Out in advance of Milton now, 23 million people are underneath some sort of tropical storm storm watch or warning or hurricane watch or warning, with those hurricane warnings extended from the Tampa coast to the East Coast over on Cape Canaveral, with then tropical storm warnings in effect to the north and south of those hurricane warnings. Here's the latest with Milton. It went through what's called an eye wall replacement cycle, where that small pinhole eye wall yesterday collapsed and another eye wall around the outside of it developed. So that is a process that causes it to weaken, but now it's primed and ready to actually begin strengthening once again. It's a very powerful Category 4 hurricane with wind speeds at 145 miles per hour, moving to the east-northeast at 12 miles per hour. Let me take you a little closer. You can see the eye wall actually a little bit bigger than the eye yesterday. And that's that secondary eye that formed. And now it's ready to start strengthening again as it moves over those warm waters in the South Gulf of Mexico. Here's one thing about Milton that's very different from Helene. It's actually much smaller. Those tropical storm force winds extend out 105 miles from the center of the storm, whereas Helene, those tropical storm force winds extended out over 300 miles from the center of the storm. The hurricane force winds, those category 4 and 5 force winds, only extend out about 30 miles from the center of the storm. The thing is, though, those winds and that wind field are expected to expand as we go through the next couple of days. And we expect those tropical storm force winds to begin to hit Florida sometime tomorrow around midday. So that's the amount of time that we've got for everyone in Florida to gradually get their preparations in order and then hunker down and get ready for the worst of those conditions. Those are the winds and then the surge. That is the most immediate concern and life-threatening concern along the coast, especially in Tampa Bay, where the forecast is for now between 10 to 15 feet of water being pushed onto normally dry ground. That's why we've got all those evacuations in place across many of those coastal communities across the west coast of Florida. In fact, you even have some surge concerns all the way up into portions of South Carolina as the storm moves across the state of Florida and then starts to throw some of that water from the Atlantic back onto the southeast coast. Here's the latest forecast from the National Hurricane Center. You see how it's forecast to become a Category 5 hurricane once again by midday today. It'll then encounter some shear, but really the damage is already done. From a surge perspective, all of those winds are going to push that water up onto the shore, still expected it to make landfall as a powerful Category 3, potentially a Category 4 hurricane, and that's going to cause potentially catastrophic damage to somewhere along the Gulf Coast of Florida. Again, those tropical storm force winds are expected to arrive by sundown tomorrow. So you've got about 24 hours or so to hurry to get your preparations in order before the conditions really begin to deteriorate. And then, of course, inland, there's going to be a flood concern as well, Errol. Some places could pick up over a foot of rainfall, generally north of the center of the track. More on Milton coming up in just a bit.
Grant, this is when technology could save people's lives. If they're in Florida, please listen to Grant, listen to Governor DeSantis, pay attention to the evacuation orders. We'll get another update from you before the hour is out. Grant, thanks so much. And as you might imagine, air travel across the United States is expected to be impacted by Hurricane Milton. This storm quickly approaching. CBS News New York reporter Elijah Westbrook is following that story for us from nearby at Newark Liberty International Airport. Elijah, what are you seeing?
And good morning. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you're someone who is traveling down to Florida either today or tomorrow, your flight will likely be impacted in some form or fashion. Nearly every airline has put out a travel advisory urging folks to take advantage of their cancellation policies, because in some cases you are eligible for a full refund. And of course, this is because of that looming storm that is now inching closer to Florida. We also want to mention that multiple airports are set to close because of this hurricane. Tampa Airport, for instance, will shut down at 9 a.m. and is expected to remain closed until further notice. We also see here Sarasota Airport will close at some point this afternoon. And then as we look ahead to tomorrow, Orlando and Fort Myers airports will close in the morning. These are major airports, and because of this looming storm, there's just no way of really getting around it. So it's best at this point to check in with your air carrier to make sure that you're able to get to your destinations. As the latest at this time from Terminal B here at Newark Airport, Elijah Westbrook, CBS News, New York.
We do have the opportunity this morning to speak with the National Hurricane Center. That's Director Michael Brennan right now. Thank you, Director Brennan, for joining us. I want to dive into all of this. I want to start, though, with a tweet. This was from the National Weather Service in Tampa. They said if the storm stays on its current track, it will be the worst storm to impact the Tampa area in over 100 years. So certainly serious. Yeah. What can folks in the Tampa area expect here?
Well, you know, in the Tampa area, you're going to expect the potential for significant life-threatening storm surge, devastating storm surge, 10 to 15 feet of inundation from, say, Clearwater down to Sarasota, where we have that storm surge warning in effect, with the core of a major hurricane making landfall as well, with the potential for devastating hurricane force winds, life-threatening flooding from the combination of the surge and the heavy rainfall. So it's really going to be a very, very dangerous, perhaps one of the most impactful hurricanes that's ever hit West Central Florida.
And tell me about the uniqueness of Tampa and the aspect of kind of wedged between Tampa and St. Pete there. You've got that water there that can kind of come ashore. You've got a number of bridges. Tell me about the storm surge threat there and what folks can expect in terms of that.
Yeah, this is our storm surge warning area. You can see it basically in the dark pink here. Basically includes the whole perimeter of Pinellas County, much of Hillsborough County, down to Sarasota, Bradenton. And you can see it's not just right along the immediate coast, but it extends well inland along the coastline of these bays and rivers. So you've got many hundreds of thousands to millions of people at risk of life-threatening inundation here in this particular location.
And that's why we know the urge really has been for those evacuations. We know this is one of the largest evacuations done in several years because of a storm. Just, you know, from an outside perspective, someone who's not a meteorologist, I feel like we've had so many storms here, strong ones in the Gulf and ones that have really rapidly intensified. Any insight into why we're seeing that specifically with these Gulf storms?
Well, the conditions in the Gulf are very favorable, unfortunately, for that kind of rapid intensification. Water temperatures are above normal, but the atmospheric conditions have been very favorable for that intensification, like we saw with both Helene and now with Milton. And even though we're expecting the peak winds to decrease with Milton, it's going to grow with size. The size of the wind field is expected to double before it reaches landfall here along the west central coast of Florida tomorrow evening or tomorrow night.
All right, this is just not good for that Gulf Coast. Director Brennan, thank you so much for your insights. Stay safe. Some of those evacuations underway in the Tampa area. We know that interstates are getting clogged out there right now because we know a lot of folks are heeding the warning to leave. Tolls have been suspended across highways in Central Florida along the West Coast, I-75 and Alligator Alley. So things definitely are getting busy out there right now. And a lot of folks are leaving places like Tampa. And that's where our live team coverage continues now, where Milton could be the worst storm there to impact that city in over 100 years.
Yeah, they saw what Helene did, and they're getting out of town for this one. Let's get to CBS News Miami's Terry Hornstein, who joins us live. And part of the reason they see in front of their homes these huge piles of debris, it's a reminder of how deadly the past storm was, Helene. And as we're watching Milton come ashore, right now it looks like it's a hurricane of a Category 4, which is what Helene was when it hit.
Yeah, really scary this morning. The clock is ticking for the people who live in these evacuation zones to get out. And we've been telling you all morning long, one of the major concerns, the debris. You can see it behind me to my left. And if we walk over this way, you can also see it here. And I did show you this an hour ago, but I do think it's worth mentioning once again. There are child toys all over the place, tricycles like this. You can just imagine how difficult for some of these families Hurricane Helene was and how concerned they are now. A lot of these homes, not just throwing away much of their livelihoods, much of their items, but inside these homes also gutted as well. So again, a lot of concern as another storm heads this way. And with that storm surge of up to 15 feet, these neighbors are really worried about what they could see next.
Take this seriously and get out. Sorry. It's a big concern for all of us. I mean, this is for most of us, this is everything we have. You know, the largest part of everybody's financial well-being is locked up in their homes.
Yeah, you could just hear that man you heard from there, just one of the many neighbors we spoke to, emotional when talking about his home. And we also heard from the mayor. She had some very strong words for anyone who lives in an evacuation zone. Listen to what she said about getting out of here.
Helene was a wake-up call. This is literally catastrophic. And I can say without any dramatization whatsoever, if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
Yeah, so not mincing words there. The mayor very concerned about her community. So many people concerned. You know, the hotel we're staying in, there are also people there who evacuated during Helene. They lost everything. They've been displaced, and now they're having to ride out another storm, and they have no idea where they will go next. All of us here waiting with bated breath of what's to come. We're live this morning in Tampa. Terry Hornstein, CBS News, Miami.
Terry, what's kind of mind-boggling here is looking behind you. This looks like Helene and that damage that happened a couple of days ago, not weeks ago. Terry, is there any idea really of just how much they can try and clear out of there before Milton comes? It's a race against the clock here at this point.
You know, honestly, just driving through this morning, they are not going to be able to get to all of this because the area we're in is just south of downtown Tampa. And as you can see here, this is Davis Islands, again, south of downtown Tampa. And there are massive piles just down the streets. And on every street you travel down, it looks like this. I mean, this debris pile we're standing next to here, as tall as I am and probably about 15 feet in length. So, I mean, it just seems impossible at this point for them to get to all of this. So you can only imagine during a storm with such high winds and with all that storm surge where all of this debris is going to go. A lot of safety concerns out here this morning. Well, hopefully that sandbags are kind of top of mind right now.
Yeah, you can see those pallets of sandbags behind me, and this site opens up in less than an hour. And if it is anything like the site that I covered yesterday, people will be taking advantage of it. Take a look at this video. This is the very fast moving line at Reynolds Park yesterday. While Hurricane Milton is not expected to hit South Florida directly, all across our area, people say they aren't taking any chances when it comes to Hurricane Milton. Valencia Francis is just one person picking up supplies to ride out Hurricane Milton. She had to go to 2 grocery stores to find what she needed.
Somebody said, "Oh my God, I went over there by Walmart. It's flooded. The car I went through, I was hustling, but because I love my clients so much, I said, okay, let me come over by Publix. So when I come, the bread section empty. Okay, the water section over there is empty.
I'm getting to get as much sand as I can. I know that where I am, it floods.
Wind is always a scary part of it, but really it's floodwater.
My name is Nakai Carreros in Hollywood with a look at how South Floridians are still getting ready.
All across our area, people say they aren't taking a chance when it comes to Hurricane Milton, especially here in Hollywood, where people have already been dealing with flooding since Saturday. And that is why they are getting storm ready.
Because what I saw over there in North Carolina, I'm so nervous. I'm telling you, trust me.
Valencia Francis is just one person picking up supplies to ride out Hurricane Milton. She had to go to 2 grocery stores to find what she needs.
Somebody said, "Oh my God, I went over there by Walmart. It's flooded. The car I went through, I was hustling, but because I love my clients so much, I said, okay, let me come over by Publix. So when I come, the bread section empty. Okay, the water section over there is empty.
The water shelves are running low at one store and at another completely gone. People say they aren't waiting last minute, but preparation started earlier in the day at sandbag distribution locations. The #1 concern for them is flooding.
I'm getting to get as much sand as I can. I know that where I am, it floods.
Wind is always a scary part of it, but really it's floodwater.
Tomorrow there will be sandbag distributions in Fort Lauderdale, Pembroke Pines, and here in Hollywood. We have a full list of locations over on our website.
Meantime, in the Keys, residents are also not letting their guard down, even though they are not in the hurricane's path.
CBS News Miami's Ted Scouten is in Key West, where neighbors have one concern that's top of mind.
The concern here in the Keys is flooding, whether it's water that's coming from the ocean, storm surge coming up on the ground, or rain falling from the sky. People here are getting ready, and they're stocking up on food, too. Folks in Key West heading to the grocery store, making sure they have what they need for the next few days.
The beer, the water, you got juice, bread, some snacks for the kids, some canned goods for them.
Chandler Barnett has a house full, 6 people, no panic buying, just making sure they're set.
This is just supplies so that we don't have to come out if it's too much rain or it's too much wind. We got everything and then we're situated.
We noticed water, of course, is a hot item. Some of the shelves are a bit sparse, but stores tell us more is on the way.
What we have to do is make sure you get your supplies, make sure you got everything charged up and you have all your needs, and then buckle down.
With concerns of a storm surge up to 3 feet and expected heavy rain, flooding is a concern here in the Keys.
They've offered us some sand, but you have to go get the sandbags from Home Depot.
Rhonda Reynolds decided to take advantage of Key West's free sand. She's not leaving anything to chance. How concerned are you about this?
Well, it's more the surge than anything else. This thing is like a bullet. It's moving really fast.
At her home, she's shoring up the back door.
The back door here.
She wants to be ready in case water starts rising.
We're high enough up that most of the time I don't need them. But if we get a little bit of a surge, this will slow it down from getting into the house.
And on Tuesday, we're expecting the port to close. We should also find out from Monroe County Schools if they'll have class on Wednesday. In Key West, Ted Scouten, CBS News, Miami.
For evacuations right now, they are underway. People in Tampa and areas nearby, they are being told to get out now before it's too late.
Our live team coverage heads to Tampa right now.
Hey, our Terry Hornstein is live there. And look, Terry, this is really a 1-2 punch for these communities. Those huge piles of debris, we could see it right there behind you from Helene. That was just weeks ago. And that's going to create a real big problem here as Milton comes ashore.
Yeah, Austin and Betty, so many people waking up anxious this morning because of these piles of debris. Take a look at this one here. It's almost as tall as I am, and there are so many that look like this. And if you look and try to pick these pieces up, they're so light, can very easily be tossed around. And this is one of the main concerns for so many here, where all of this will go as this next storm hits.
If they have called for your evacuation order, I beg you, I implore you to evacuate.
Heavy highway traffic Monday showed that many Floridians are heeding those warnings, with deadly storm surge as high as 15 feet forecast for some areas. Those planning to ride out the storm lined up for hours to fill sandbags.
With the last storm, we got flooded, so it's all about prepping this time.
Also to buy gas and dwindling supplies at stores, where some shelves are already empty.
Paper towel, water, and canned food boxes, everything. A lot of people is like going crazy buying stuff.
In St. Petersburg Beach, residents still digging out after Helene struck 2 weeks ago. Now there's a race against time to remove leftover piles of debris before Milton blows through.
We need as much of this debris picked up as possible. This creates a safety hazard.
In Tampa, staff at this zoo rushing to secure the animals before Milton makes landfall.
We do have a lot of what we call night houses or buildings that the animals are used to going into.
The state also now with a base camp at Tropicana Field with 10,000 beds set up for emergency workers.
Yes, so many people here in Tampa just really concerned this morning. You're looking at a pile of debris just across the street from where I'm standing. And then take a look where I am here. Another pile of debris. So many houses look like this. A lot of their lives items just strewn about out here. I mean, we're talking about couches, we're talking about stools, even car seats like this one just on the street this morning. So many people lost everything in Hurricane Helene, their homes gutted this morning. Now all of them worried about what it will look like when they wake up later on this week. We're live this morning in Tampa. Terry Hornstein, CBS News, Miami.
Yeah, that debris needs to be removed very quickly because the storm is approaching. It can be a big problem. Terry, thank you.
Many communities in Milton's path are still recovering from Hurricane Helene just 2 weeks ago. Debris from that storm remains on the side of the road, making for an even more dangerous situation.
If Hurricane Milton continues its track and it hits Tampa, it could be the worst storm to hit that area since 1921.
CBS News Miami's Anna McAllister joins us live now from Davis Island in Tampa. Anna, how do things look there tonight?
Well, Jim, Lauren, it is very quiet here. We've watched as people have been boarding up businesses just like this one, then putting up boards here, sandbags as well. And again, like you guys just mentioned, this is coming just less than 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene ripped through this area. You could see huge piles of debris just like this one scattered all throughout this area. And now residents are preparing for Milton to make landfall. With less than 2 days before Hurricane Milton is expected to make landfall, Davis Island residents are doing everything they can to prepare. And many of them say they aren't taking any chances.
I'll be leaving tomorrow and just getting away from here.
Davis Island near downtown Tampa felt Hurricane Helene's wrath. The storm ripping through homes and businesses, leaving behind substantial damage.
10 days ago, we were hurting from what happened before, from Helene, and then all the debris is still out on the street. So if this actually does come here, then that's going to just go everywhere.
In South Tampa, homes were destroyed by Helene. Jeff Harvey says he had more than a foot of water in his home, leaving him with practically nothing.
Tearing out the drywall, all of the appliance, my kitchen cabinets, my bathrooms. My house is essentially fully gutted.
Harvey watched and recorded as cars drove through his flooded street, pushing water onto his property that knocked down his fence and poured into his house. For the first time in 10 years, he's leaving the area and urging his neighbors to do the same.
Take this seriously. Take this seriously and get out. Sorry. It's a big concern for all of us. I mean, this is for most of us, this is everything we have. You know, the largest part of everybody's financial well-being is locked up in their homes. You know, and flood insurance caps you at $250.
As residents make last-minute preparations, officials are urging those under mandatory evacuations to listen, while locals of the Tampa Bay area are praying for the best and preparing for the worst.
God help us, I guess.
And while residents say they are scared, they're using tomorrow to get more sandbags to finish with their preparations. But for now, reporting live from Davis Island, Adam McAllister, CBS News.